Vodcast. Think about it. Evening, Graham.
Good evening, Graham. How are you?
Yeah, well, and I can say good evening, Grahams.
Hi there, Richie.
How are you? You look quite relaxed there, Graham.
I'm working on this. It doesn't come natural to me, but I'm working on it.
As long as you don't give us a Sharon Stone moment, we'll be all right. Graham and I did a wee trial earlier of his sound, and I was reveling in his the picture above his head, Macduff.
Macduff, yes, that was a short-lived band for about a year when I was about 19, 20, and we had a poster made. So all these years later, Paul and Stephen made it into got it framed for me. So it was, something nice to have. This is my wee studio room where I keep my guitars, amps, all that sort of stuff. So it's nice to have it on the wall. And I don't know if you can see it over here, but do you remember Shuggy's wife, Alice, who sadly passed away? That is a painting of the Clutha that Alice did.
Oh, I see it now, yeah.
And then over here, I don't know if you can see it, but over here, that's the Eric Clapton Beano album, which is probably 1966, one of the biggest impacts on me as a guitar player ever.
Or one of these days we can get you singing, Graham, as well. You never know.
Actually, in the days gone by, there was the odd time.
So you're quite useful for last orders, I hear.
Last orders.
when you take to the microphone, that's what you told me before. You're guaranteed to clear the place. One of these days we'll get you there. And you have sung before in the days of the dangerous Clutha past when Cookie hasn't turned up. You have sung.
Right.
All right.
When I was in my teens, I played in a band called Earth, and we did a lot of Cream and Hendrix stuff. The bass player and singer, they were, I was 17, they were 22, they'd been down to London, they were real pros, great. But at that time, I had a fuzz box and I'd practiced finger vibrato, so everybody was still playing George, the sort of, Keith Richards licks. Nobody was actually doing the stuff. So because I was doing that, they thought it was great. So we all played and bashed away. And the song that I sang was Foxy Lady.
Wayne's World. Just every time I hear that song, it just reminds me of Wayne's World.
Yeah. I'm wondering, did you sing that to a German girl at any point in your life?
Is that the German girl?
Yes,
I wish.
So you obviously disclosed that story to Sheila.
Oh, I did. And the great thing is, the following night, we were in company, and she said, "No, I believe it. You were almost up after the gig last night. Comes, cup of coffee, we're sitting blethering." He says, "I'm not going to believe it." I went to her. She said, "Really?" "Good night, don't come near me. I'm kidding." Do you know what she was Lindsay? She said, "You might have got COVID," shaking that girl's hand.
True.
I don't know if, Graham, you know the story. When Richie and I got chatting about getting a band together, Richie's original suggestion for a name was the Vinyl Countdown.
Yes.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that was it.
But it is so interesting reading some of the stuff that happened to musicians, and I guess where the idea for this came from. I bought Guy Pratt's book last year, the bass player with Pink Floyd at the moment, Session Guy, and he's played with Robert Palmer and the Power Station and loads of guys. He did sessions in the 90s as well with Madonna and Michael Jackson. And I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff that I've been posting of him. He's doing lockdown licks on YouTube at the moment. So he's playing through some of the famous passages that he's famous for. But his book is absolutely brilliant because he's a bit of a stand-up guy as well. He goes out and does some stand-up comic stuff. So, but listen to him recount some of those stories from the studio. It's fascinating, and I guess there's lots of that in that book as well, Richie.
Yeah, probably will be. I think the other thing which stood out for me recently was, I don't know if you've listened to the Live Lounge version of Times Like These yet. So
I've seen it advertised.
That song to me was one of the main reasons I kind of really got into the Foo Fighters. I thought Times Like These was an incredible song, and we actually did it with Two's Up a few times. And he got in touch with Dave Grohl and said, "Would like to use that track," and Dave Grohl was like, "Absolutely, holy shit, definitely, it would be my honor for you to use it." And so basically they sent the song and a backing track, and it was Taylor Hawkins, the drummer, just with a little backbeat in it, just quite relaxed. And they sent it out to everybody. So you've got Dua Lipa, Anne-Marie, the guys from Biffy Clyro, Chris Martin finishes it off. There's a rapper, there's Jess Glynn.
Chris Martin would finish off any song, really.
And then you see a clip to Dave Grohl, he's sitting with his mic in front of him like this, kind of just about to sing it, and he just starts smiling like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And then obviously there's effectively at the end, there's like 30 people singing, but they all recorded it at home.
Brilliant.
So they're all in like this, you know, singing into a microphone. And it was interesting, the producer was saying, you know, not every artist, it might surprise you folks, but not every artist has a setup in their home. They have their studios that they go to and do stuff in, but you know, it was trying to get people to just do something creative with their phone or their iPhone or lighting or put something sparkly on.
Yeah.
But the quality of it at the end of it's magnificent. It really is.
When you were talking earlier on, Graham, which was interesting to me, because for bass players, I've always thought of the bass players of the sort of higher echelons needing to have a fantastic knowledge of music. You know, all the different notes in a chord, all the different, and very often there's loads of passing notes taking you from one chord to the next, the different sort of inversions, and then of course you've got the slapping sort of style and various other styles depending on the song, whatever suits best. It really is a minefield when you take it up to the next level.
There's a good quote actually from Sting where he says that none of the band actually know what the chord is until the bass player plays his note. Because the bass could change an entire chord, you know. So I think that's a good quote. But yeah, I mean, and it's interesting to read about other bass players as well. I mean, you would think that somebody like Geddy Lee from Rush, whose book is behind me at the moment, the big beautiful book of bass, which I got last year from Nicola and the kids. It's fascinating because he was playing his bass, his instrument, for years and years and years, and he admits himself he knew nothing about it. He was on the road. He had techs who did all the setup and you know, changed the strings, blah blah blah. And it wasn't until one of his techs said to him, you know, I'm going to go down to one of the local stores and have a look and see what, when they were on tour, you know, see what basses are around and maybe pick up a couple of bargains and things. And he was like, yeah, great, okay, I'll come down with you and we'll scope out some guitars. No intention of buying anything or on the lookout for anything, because the things that he had in his arsenal were, you know, the things that he was happy with. He had a Fender jazz bass, which he's kind of stuck with over the years, and he had a Rickenbacker as well from back in the early days of Rush, and a couple of other, you know, nondescript pieces. But he found a passion by, you know, looking through the store and looking at different basses and finding out the history of them. And now, you know, this book is all his basses that he owns, and it's like a what's what of all basses throughout history. It's brilliant. So, but yeah, going back to your point earlier, Graham, about you know, bass players having to know everything about, you know, music theory and all that sort of stuff. I mean, another one of my heroes is Billy Sheehan, and he has said in interviews for years, I don't know how to read music. I don't know anything about music theory, but I know that I can move my fingers in a certain way and a certain pattern, and I can do it fast, and I can keep up with a lot of guitar players, and that seems to work for me. And I think that's really refreshing. A guy even of his standing, you know, made a career out of it for years, that, you know, still doesn't know how to read music.
Yeah, but Frankie was a legend, Graham, wasn't he? I tell you, he had the worst musical ethical behaviour in the world. He would turn up late to every gig and literally walk on stage and start playing and shout at you because it wasn't loud enough.
No.
No. So I'm reflecting on that day when we played. It was a brilliant gig, and I think part of it was the fact the sound guy, I wanted to punch his lights out, and that's not like me. But
No, at all.
it riled me so much. He turned up late. It caused us to start late, and of course everybody's looking at us like, why are you not playing? I was like, because that asshole hasn't done his job. And of course, from the moment he just kept pointing to me, turn down, and he wound me up so much. I just thought, you know what? It's kind of supercharged me a bit. Like, so it kind of we went for it, didn't we? And it was one of those tremendous afternoon gigs. And I thought after it, I wondered if there would be some comeback from that.
But Graham, have you ever had the embarrassment of being asked not to come back in your playing career? Now that you've learned what sorts of people you've got into bed with.
I don't recall of never being asked to come back, but I've certainly had no return phone calls from venues that I played in before, and I've thought we've gone down fantastic. It's like, we need to get back in there again, and it's like tumbleweed. You just don't hear.
It's the Vintage Vinyl Big Quiz.
Yeah, absolutely. I can feel the tension building here, chaps. Hope you've got your fingers on the buzzers. Right. Are you ready?
Go for it.
This is a difficult one, and I'm just going to give you a difficult one to start with. Name the 1980 album by The Cure that was 35 minutes and 24 seconds longer than its title suggested.
I know nothing about The Cure.
Zero.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to listening to a Vintage Vinyl Vodcast. Stay safe, and we'll see you again next time. Good night.
Vodcast.